Hi YouTubers, and I'm back for another YouTube video of what would have happened if this were in real life. Now, I was thinking about like other stuff, like, you know, how me and Shane, we didn't do a school lunch YouTube video today, but it is the first day of school, so seeing how it is, and seeing how I've already done like the Skylanders movie version of this and the Spyro movie version of this, I figured why not do the Crash Bandicoot movie and share that idea with me. So, without further ado, this is what would have happened if the Crash Bandicoot movie were in real life. So we cut open to the beginning where Crash Bandicoot and his and his partner, I don't know what his partner, I don't know what, and his flying partner, I don't know who that character is. If you know who he is, then remind me. Are on vacation, so I figured are technically on vacation on their islands, which of course that is. And then that is until when they both get interrupted by Dr. Neo Cortex and his partner as well, who you know, who I don't know who his name is as well, but I know what I'm talking about. So then eventually, Crash Bandicoot and the so Crash and I think his Crash and I think his female friend, I forgot her name as well. They eventually would like be they would eventually be banished by Dr. Neo Cortex. Them and their partner would, and Crash's partner would eventually, the three of them would eventually be banished to Earth. They would eventually be banished to Earth, and they would look very differently because Dr. Neo Cortex and his partner banished the three of them all the way to Earth. So yeah, that kind of does make sense. And then and then here we meet here we meet one male human character and one female human character, and both of them are just like Crash Bandicoot and his girlfriend. I think I know what I'm talking about. I think I know what I'm talking about. They're just like them. So they're just like them. So in which case they decided the male character and the male human character and the female human character, they eventually take Crash Bandicoot and his girlfriend and his partner inside their house. So they agreed to take them in there, and they tell them that an evil person named Dr. Neo Cortex and his partner had eventually, been freed from prison, was actually freed from prison and actually easily escaped. But was actually freed from Cloudcracker prison, which I wanted to add because there has to be, because remember how like I revealed the Skylanders in the after credits scene, how like the Skylanders from were in the after credits scene for the Spyro movie. I figured all has to, the Spyro video games and the Crash Bandicoot video games have to connect to the Skylander video, have to all connect. And the Skylanders, the Spyro, and Crash Bandicoot video games all have to connect together, so that kind of does make sense. So eventually, Crash and his partner and his girlfriend, they eventually enjoy life on Earth, which is actually perfectly great. Meanwhile, Dr. Neo Cortex eventually frees all of his villains from like all the villains from like the previous Crash Bandicoot video games. I don't know what their names are, but I'm just gonna say the villain army of Dr. Neo Cortex. I'm just gonna say that. So I'm just gonna say that because I think that there's a lot more villains aside from Dr. Neo Cortex in the Crash Bandicoot video games. So I figured it's going to be very obvious. So they're all relaxed. Meanwhile, Crash Bandicoot, his girlfriend, his partner, and the male human character and the female human character, they actually get along. They go to places. They go to like the mall. They go to like all sorts of other places. It's kind of what it's kind of like. This is a, this would probably be a kids movie, just like the Skylanders movie and the Spyro movie. So yeah, so they'd be going to the mall. They'd be doing a lot. They'd be going to going to the feeders, which would technically be an Easter egg, which would technically show an Easter egg which would technically show an Easter egg for which would technically show an Easter egg for the Skylanders movie in the Spyro, which would technically have a Spyro Easter egg in the when they're in the feeders, and then they would be going to all sorts of other places, vacations, whatnot. And meanwhile, Dr. Neocortex is trying to find a way to try and find a way to get to them so that he can conquer Earth and Crash Bandicoot and his girlfriend and his partner's islands, and then they can technically do all that. So yeah, I know exactly where I'm going with this. So yeah, you can actually thank me for actually coming up with this idea. So eventually, Crash Bandicoot and his girlfriend and his partner, they all relax at the male human character and the female human character's house, only to find out that they actually have a rival too. So there's actually a rival character between but there's actually a character who's actually a rival to the male human character and the female human character. They don't have, now note that these two human characters, they don't have names. The two of them don't have names whatsoever. I mean, I just couldn't come up with an idea. I just couldn't come up with a name, so I just say that. Or you can just say MHC and HC, which stands for male human character and female human character. Or I can just say that. So yeah, you kind of already know what I'm saying. So yeah. Then we forward to a little bit to where there's like a few couple funny scenes and all, and how there's like old retro video game references in there. I'm guessing there would probably be in there because it's a very old franchise that dates back to like the PS1 or something. So yeah, I figured why not do that. Then of course Dr. Neocortex and his partner, they eventually find a way, and his villain army, they eventually find a way to Earth, which kind of just makes sense. They eventually find their way there, which actually is kind of very obvious. They find their way there, and then there's a battle scene. Then there's of course a funny battle. Then of course there's a funny comedic fight/battle scene, which actually is kind of very obvious. The male human character and the female human character are trying to protect themselves from the Dr. Neocortex and his partner and his villain army. They're trying to protect themselves from that, like hiding under whatever they call it. So yeah, that kind of just makes sense. And then of course we fast forward right where Dr. Neocortex actually gets rid of Crash Bandicoot's girlfriend. So the Crash Bandicoot movie is one of those where the female character dies and then the female character dies for the male character. I know it seems like repeat, but I just couldn't come up with anything else. So Crash Bandicoot's girlfriend dies. Crash Bandicoot and his partner have to find a way to revive him, the male human character, to revive her. The male human character's and the female human characters actually sacrifice themselves for her. Crash Bandicoot's girlfriend, now Crash Bandicoot's girlfriend and his partner, they eventually use all their powers combined. They use all their powers and might combined to put an end to banish Dr. Neocortex and his partner and his villain army all the way back to all the way to a new prison, that was owned by, all the way to Skyland's prison, all the way to a prison owned by run and owned by the dragons. So technically, we get to see some of we get to see some of the dragons that were introduced in the Spyro video games, and they're all there, like, you know, making sure. And then Dr. Neocortex eventually sleeps, and then he eventually sleeps, and while he eventually does not wake up, and he eventually falls down from a portal all the way from Earth to the villain dragon, the dragon's villain prison, and then that's the end of Dr. Neocortex, and then Dr. Neocortex is eventually sent, and his partner and his villain army are all sent from Earth to there. So that's kind of does make sense. Then of course they all cheer and celebrate. They eventually have a perfectly good ending, and yeah, I guess that kind of already narrows that down. And that's what would have happened if the Crash Bandicoot movie were in real life. Now, I didn't have any other ideas for today. Like, I mean, I was thinking about, like, doing the 4th video game, because seeing how I've already done the Skylanders movie and the Spyro movie, I figured why not do the Crash Bandicoot video game. I mean, I was thinking about doing the Crash Bandicoot 4 video game. You'll be able to see me do that on here, so yeah, that kind of just makes sense. And I mean, you'll still be able to see me and Shane do YouTube school lunch YouTube videos and whatnot. You'll still be able to see us do that and all that. So yeah, you'll still be able to see us do that, and yeah. And, you know, and you'll still be able to see the new video gaming YouTube videos. All that is still continuing to happen. Like, maybe you'll see me and Shane do a school lunch YouTube video tomorrow, and that kind of already makes sense. So yeah, you can expect one to come out tomorrow. And that's it for today. Peace out. Bye bye.